Imagine picking up a standard over-the-counter product at your local pharmacy. Something heavily marketed for comfort or intimacy or health.
Right, something you just grab off the shelf without a second thought.
Exactly. You apply it, totally assuming it is completely safe.
Hmm.
But on a microscopic level, that same product is acting like a literal molecular wrecking ball.
It really is.
No.
It's actively melting synthetic barriers and like violently ripping hydration right out of your own cellular tissue.
Which is terrifying. And that invisible sabotage is our target for today. So welcome to the deep dive.
Glad to be here.
Today we are looking at the hidden science of personal intimacy products, specifically vaginal lubricants and moisturizers.
Yeah, we really need to examine how they interact with both our physical synthetic barriers and, our highly absorptive human tissues.
We've got a really robust stack of sources for you today. We're pulling from clinical guidelines from the World Health Organization and the British Society of Sexual Medicine.
Plus some really groundbreaking research using 3D human tissue models, gynecological studies, and detailed product safety analyses.
Right, and this specific collection of data is profound because it takes these incredibly common, everyday items and subjects them to rigorous microscopic scrutiny.
We are looking way past the brand recognition and the soothing packaging, right? We're getting into the raw biochemical interactions.
Our mission today is to decode that complex chemistry. We're exploring a critical theme running through all the current research, how oil-based and heavily chemical products cause catastrophic barrier collapse.
Which means we are talking about the literal physical degradation of condoms and the microscopic dismantling of your own cellular architecture.
We know you want to make informed decisions about your health, so we are bypassing the marketing fluff entirely. We're going to give you the biological breakdown.
Because the disconnect between the marketing and the chemistry is just massive.
Okay, let's unpack this. Before we dive into human biology, we really have to start with our first line of defense against pathogens and unplanned pregnancy.
Right, the mechanical breakdown of synthetic barriers when they encounter oils.
And the clinical guidelines are totally unambiguous here. There is a severe chemical incompatibility between latex and oil-based lubricants.
Yeah, things like baby oil, petroleum jelly, coconut oil, and mineral oil.
The data shows that when a standard latex condom is exposed to mineral oil, complete mechanical failure can happen fast, like really fast.
We are talking about severe degradation in as little as 60 seconds.
A single minute. That is a terrifyingly narrow window if you are relying on that barrier for protection.
It really is.
I mean, it's basically like building a suspension bridge out of rubber and then painting the support cables with acid. The collapse is almost instantaneous.
That's a perfect analogy. And if we connect this to the bigger picture, the underlying chemistry explains that rapid collapse perfectly.
Right, because latex is a polymer, meaning it's made of these long, repeating chains of molecules.
Exactly. Bonded together to create that elastic, stretchy strength. But the lipid molecules in oils act as a solvent.
So they get right in there.
They do. They physically insert themselves between those long polymer chains and force them apart, which dissolves the chemical bonds.
So the lipids are literally unzipping the molecular structure of the rubber.
Precisely. And this degradation applies broadly across a lot of synthetic barriers. It is not just standard latex.
Wait, really? What else does it destroy?
The sources specify that oil-based lubricants will also destroy newer condom brands made from polyisoprene, and it ruins silicone diaphragms and cervical caps too.
Wow. So the petroleum actively degrades all these materials, transforming them into a fragile, compromised mess.
It completely ruins their structural integrity.
Is there any exception to this rule? Like, what if someone is using a highly purified, natural oil, like a high-grade olive oil?
Well, product chemistry always trumps marketing or natural labels. A liquid is a lipid.
So it doesn't matter if it's natural.
Not at all. Whether it's extracted from a plant or synthesized in a lab as mineral oil, those lipid molecules will still dissolve the polymer chains in latex and polyisoprene.
That is so good to know. So what's the safe bet?
The only narrow exception in the condom market is barriers made from polyurethane or nitrile.
Oh, right.
Yeah, those materials have a completely different molecular architecture that simply does not interact with lipids.
Now, the sources also point out a really sneaky way this lipid interaction happens without people even realizing they're applying oil.
Yes, this is a huge blind spot for a lot of people.
Vaginal creams prescribed for fungal infections, treatments containing aconazole or miconazole, they can also degrade latex condoms.
Because the medication itself isn't the problem. It's the delivery mechanism.
Right, the base of those medical creams is heavily oil-based.
Exactly. Even if a doctor prescribes it, if the vehicle carrying the medication contains oils, it will attack the latex.
It's just inevitable chemistry.
It is. And the guidelines also highlight that mechanical failure isn't always chemical. Misapplication plays a massive role here, too.
Or like putting it on wrong.
Right. If a lubricant is applied to the outside of the penis before rolling the condom on, or directly to the inside of the condom itself, the friction dynamics change entirely.
So the barrier doesn't dissolve chemically, but it slips off, failing mechanically.
Exactly. You lose the structural integrity in a totally different way.
So the absolute baseline rule is that oils and latex are incompatible. The physical chemistry guarantees failure.
Always.
And it makes sense that harsh lipids would break down synthetic rubber, but the sources reveal that the damage goes far beyond synthetic materials, right?
No, absolutely. This is where it gets really concerning.
Because these same commercial products can actually dismantle the physical defenses of our own human cellular barriers.
This is the transition from mechanical failure to biological failure. We are looking at the delicate epithelial layers of the vaginal tissue now.
And to understand how these products cause cellular collapse, we have to look really closely at osmolality.
Right. For a biological baseline, the natural, healthy vaginal fluid has an osmolality of about 370 milliosmoles per kilogram.
Okay, 370. And the World Health Organization recommends that any topical product used in this environment should stay under 1200 to prevent cellular stress.
Correct. You want the product to be isoosmotic. That means the concentration of particles in the gel closely matches the tissue's natural concentration.
And when those numbers align, the cellular environment remains stable.
Exactly. But the data on commercial products is just staggering. A massive number of common, over-the-counter, water-based lubricants are heavily hyperosmolar.
Because they're packed with glycerin or glycols to achieve that slippery texture, right?
Yes. For example, Astroglide measures at 4,500 milliosmoles per kilogram.
4,500. When the WHO recommends under 1,200, that's insane.
It gets worse. KY Warming Jelly hits an astonishing 8,600.
Wow. Those numbers represent a massive hostile chemical imbalance.
They really do. And to observe exactly what that imbalance does to human cells, researchers utilize the epivaginal 3D tissue model.
I read about this in the sources. It's a highly sophisticated, reconstructed in vitro model of human vaginal epithelium, right?
Yes. It allows scientists to witness the structural changes in the tissue layers in real time without having to run direct clinical tests on human subjects.
And this is where I found the research totally counterintuitive.
How so?
Well, if these products are marketed as water-based lubricants, how on earth are they causing extreme cellular dehydration? It seems like a total contradiction.
What's fascinating here is the physics of how water moves across the cellular membrane. It relies entirely on the osmotic gradient.
Right. It's trying to balance things out.
Exactly. Because these commercial gels have such an incredibly dense concentration of chemical particles, they demand equilibrium with their environment.
So the gel basically acts as a chemical vacuum.
Yes. Instead of providing moisture, that dense glycerin matrix violently pulls the natural water out of the human epithelial cells to dilute itself.
Oh my God. So the product is weaponizing the body's own drive for equilibrium against itself.
It physically rips the hydration right from the underlying tissue.
And the physical results documented in that epivaginal study are brutal.
They're very stark.
When exposed to these hyperosmolar lubes, the tissue suffers extreme dehydration. The apical layers, the protective top layers of the tissue, they literally peel off and shed.
And beneath that, the basal and parabasal cell layers suffer severe structural disorganization.
The actual architecture of the tissue just caves in.
Right. And the researchers quantified this destruction using a clinical measurement called TEER, or transepithelial electrical resistance.
What exactly does TEER measure?
It measures the physical tightness of the junctions between the cells.
Okay, so it sounds a bit like testing a brick wall by seeing how much water leaks through the mortar. If the mortar is washed away, the structural integrity is gone and everything flows right through the gaps.
That is an excellent way to visualize it. TEER uses electrical resistance to find those microscopic gaps.
So what happened when they tested the products?
When researchers applied products like KY Warming Jelly or ID Glide to the 3D tissue models, the TEER values plummeted by 30% to 70%.
70%?
Yes. A drop that's significant proves that the tight junctions between the cells were physically destroyed.
Wow. So the tissue's barrier function was fundamentally broken, leaving the epithelium highly permeable or basically leaky.
Exactly. And a leaky cellular barrier means you are highly susceptible to any pathogen in the environment.
The sources explicitly state this tissue damage makes a person far more vulnerable to acquiring and transmitting sexually transmitted infections, things like HIV and HSV, genital herpes.
because the hyperosmolar gel strips away the body's natural cellular armor.
But the structural collapse of the cellular wall is just the first phase, right?
Unfortunately, yes. Once the physical tissue is compromised and leaky, the secondary defense system gets caught in the crossfire.
Which brings us to the microscopic ecosystem defending that tissue, the microbiome.
Right. Once the physical walls fall, the microbial defenders are the next to face chemical disruption.
And the vaginal microbiome is this brilliant, highly calibrated ecosystem.
It is. In its healthy state, it is dominated by lactobacillus. The clinical research affectionately refers to lactobacillus as the queen of vaginal ecology.
The queen. I love that. And her primary job is to produce lactic acid, which keeps the vaginal environment highly acidic, usually sitting at a pH between 3.5 and 4.5.
And that natural acidity acts as a broad-spectrum, completely hostile environment for harmful invading bacteria and viruses.
But introducing these over-the-counter formulas causes absolute chaos for that ecosystem.
Total chaos. Let's examine the mechanism of some specific ingredients here.
Okay.
Take glycerin, which we just established, dehydrates the cells through osmotic pressure. It does double duty as an ecological disruptor. Glycerin is actually a sugar alcohol.
Oh, right. So adding a high glycerin lube to this delicate environment provides a massive metabolic fuel source for yeast.
Exactly.
It's basically throwing a pizza party for yeast, allowing candida to gorge, multiply, and spike the risk of yeast infections.
That's exactly what happens. And the situation deteriorates even further when you look at the antibacterial additives used as preservatives in these formulas.
Like chlorhexidine.
Yes, some lubricants contain chlorhexidine. It is cationic, meaning it carries a positive charge.
So it binds directly to the negatively charged cell walls of bacteria.
And physically ruptures them. But the problem is, it does not discriminate between harmful pathogens and protective bacteria.
Oh no, so it acts as a scorched earth chemical, indiscriminately slaughtering the lactobacillus.
Right, so the lactic acid production stops, the pH level rises, and your natural acidic shield vanishes completely.
That is so counterproductive. What about petroleum jelly? We know it dissolves latex condoms, but how does the biology react to it?
Well, petroleum jelly creates a highly occlusive barrier. It completely seals off the tissue.
Which sounds good for a scrape on your arm, maybe.
Right, but applying that same occlusive barrier inside the vagina traps heat and moisture while completely cutting off the oxygen flow.
So it just cooks the environment.
Basically, it rapidly alters the pH balance. The sources cite a study demonstrating that women who used intravaginal petroleum jelly were 2.2 times more likely to test positive for bacterial vaginosis.
Oh, 2.2 times higher risk just from trying to relieve friction.
Yeah. And bacterial vaginosis increases your susceptibility to other, much more serious pelvic infections.
But there is another class of chemicals highlighted in the safety analyses that requires serious attention: endocrine disrupting chemicals, or EDCs, specifically parabens and petrochemicals.
And this raises an important question, right? It forces us to reconsider how we view topical applications entirely.
Because the general assumption is that what goes on the skin stays on the skin.
But vaginal mucosal tissue is completely distinct from normal epidermis. It is highly absorptive and dense with blood vessels,
It is biologically designed to be permeable.
meaning those EDCs don't just sit locally in the tissue. They are absorbed directly into the systemic bloodstream.
So they completely bypass hepatic first-pass metabolism.
Exactly. When you ingest a chemical, your liver filters it before it hits your general circulation.
But when a chemical is absorbed through mucosal tissue, it enters the bloodstream directly. It entirely avoids the liver's filtration system. And once those EDCs are in the bloodstream, what is the exact mechanism of disruption? Like, what are they doing?
Well, parabens and certain petrochemicals have a molecular structure that closely resembles estrogen.
Oh, so they mimic it.
Yes. Because of this, they can actively bind to estrogen receptors on cells throughout your entire body.
That sounds dangerous.
It is. The research links this systemic hormonal mimicry to severe conditions like fibroids, endometriosis, and an elevated risk of estrogen-responsive cancers, such as breast cancer.
So product counseling isn't just about localized sexual comfort. It's a critical clinical intervention for a person's systemic long-term health.
It absolutely is.
So we have a very clear picture of the cascading failures now. Mechanical failure, where lipid molecules dissolve latex polymer chains.
Right, biological failure, where hyperosmolar osmotic gradients rip water from cells and destroy tight junctions.
And ecological failure, where sugar alcohols feed yeast and EDCs bypass the liver to hijack hormone receptors.
It's a perfect storm.
So, what does this all mean? How do we solve the friction problem without triggering a chemical disaster? What does the science actually recommend?
The first critical step is distinguishing between a lubricant and a moisturizer, because they serve entirely different clinical functions.
Okay, break that down for us.
Lubricants are formulated for temporary, immediate friction reduction during sexual activity. They sit right on the surface layer.
And moisturizers.
Moisturizers are designed to be bioadhesive. The polymers in moisturizers physically cross-link with the mucin and epithelial cells on the vaginal wall.
So they stay there to retain water and stabilize the pH over several days.
Exactly.
Yeah.
A moisturizer is for baseline daily maintenance, and a lubricant is for the immediate friction event.
Okay, so when we are tossing out all those hyperosmol, high glycerin products we talked about earlier, what actually qualifies as a safe alternative?
The WHO guidelines steer consumers toward isoosmotic water-based lubricants.
The ones engineered to match that natural 370 millismoles per kilogram baseline.
Right. Instead of utilizing heavy glycerin concentrations, they rely on alternative thickeners like aloe vera, hydroxyethylcellulose, or hypermelath.
So these ingredients provide the necessary slip and hydration without creating that dangerous osmotic vacuum.
Exactly. Silicone-based lubricants also present a highly unique profile in the clinical research.
Because silicone itself is a polymer, right? And these specific formulations are anhydrous, meaning they contain absolutely zero water,
And because they lack water, their osmolality is functionally zero.
which means they are physically incapable of pulling water out of your cells because there is no osmotic gradient demanding equilibrium.
Exactly. The clinical data shows they offer the highest degree of friction reduction, they don't evaporate or dry out, and because they contain no lipids, they are completely safe to use with standard latex condoms.
The one functional caveat, though, is that silicone lubricants will degrade silicone sex toys.
Right, because the chemical structures are too similar, and they will slowly dissolve each other.
Good to know. Now, the clinical guidelines also acknowledge a specific nuance regarding natural oils, which I found super interesting.
Yes. We established the fact that they destroy latex and can disrupt the microbiome by trapping moisture. Right. However, the data indicates they are not universally detrimental for every single individual.
So there's some nuance here.
There is. The sources cite a 2013 study that focused exclusively on breast cancer survivors experiencing painful intercourse.
And within that specific cohort, 73% of the women reported that using natural olive oil significantly improved their comfort without adverse effects.
That is a crucial clinical caveat.
So if an individual is not relying on latex barriers and their specific biology tolerates natural lipids without triggering a yeast imbalance, plant-based oils can be an effective mechanical friction reducer.
Yes, but it requires an understanding of your own biological baseline and knowing exactly what synthetic barriers are in play.
Right, you have to know your body. What about individuals navigating chronic structural dryness, particularly genitourinary syndrome of menopause or GSM?
For GSM, over-the-counter lubricants and moisturizers often fall short. The medical guidelines strongly advise clinical interventions in these cases, specifically localized estrogen therapies like Vagifem or Ovastin.
How does localized estrogen differ from just applying a heavy moisturizer?
Localized estrogen doesn't just mask the symptom of dryness, it actively alters the underlying tissue biology.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, the topical estrogen stimulates the epithelial cells to multiply and thicken, literally physically restoring the architecture of the vaginal wall.
That's amazing.
It is. Furthermore, it promotes the production of glycogen within those cells.
And when the cells naturally shed, that glycogen provides the exact metabolic food source the protective lactobacillus needs to thrive and produce lactic acid.
Exactly. It rebuilds the physical barrier and the microbial defense system simultaneously.
That is fascinating. It's treating the root cause of the barrier collapse rather than just applying a temporary surface fix.
Exactly.
So as a consumer, how do you navigate the overwhelming options at the pharmacy armed with this data?
You really have to read the ingredient label with the same scrutiny you would apply to a medical contract.
Right, you're looking for massive red flags, high concentrations of glycerin, chlorhexidine, petroleum bases, and parabens.
You need a formula that is isoosmotic, respects the acidic pH balance, and is entirely free of endocrine disruptors.
You have to act as the informed gatekeeper for your own physical and biological defenses. Relying on front label marketing will inevitably lead to compromised tissue.
It's true, the marketing won't protect you.
Let's run through a rapid-fire recap of the most critical takeaways from the clinical data we covered today.
Let's do it.
Number 1. The lipid molecules in oil-based products will physically dissolve the polymer chains of a latex condom, causing total structural failure in just 60 seconds. Keep all mineral and plant oils away from latex.
Number 2. Heavy, hyperosmolar water-based gels create a severe osmotic gradient. They act as a chemical vacuum, violently pulling water out of human cells, causing severe dehydration and physically breaking apart the protective junctions in the epithelial tissue.
Number 3. To defend your microbiome and your systemic health, you must eliminate glycerin, which acts as a sugar source for yeast, and avoid EDCs, which bypass liver filtration and enter the bloodstream to disrupt your hormone receptors.
Your everyday lifestyle choices, even the products you reach for casually to improve comfort, trigger profound biological chain reactions.
But when you understand the mechanics of those reactions, you can actively defend your cellular architecture and your long-term health.
Maintaining the integrity of those barriers, both the synthetic polymers and your own cellular walls, requires prioritizing raw chemistry over comfortable marketing.
Absolutely. As we wrap up today's deep dive into the hidden science of personal intimacy products, consider this final lingering question.
This is something you really want to think about.
We just detailed how the highly absorptive blood vessel-rich mucosal tissues of the vagina allow endocrine-disrupting chemicals to completely bypass the digestive system and enter the bloodstream directly.
Right.
If that physiological pathway is tricky lubricants, what other heavily marketed cosmetics, daily lotions, or lifestyle products are you casually applying to highly absorptive areas of your body every single day, completely unaware of the systemic hormonal cascade they might be triggering?
It forces a completely different perspective the next time you open your bathroom cabinet.
It really does. Keep scrutinizing those labels, keep asking the hard questions about the chemistry, and we will see you on the next deep dive.